bit.
Okay. I would say if I had to highlight one particular aspect of the marketing campaign, which I think was extremely successful and created the phenomena of the Blair Witch, it will be the presentation of this film as a faux documentary. I think people in this country were just enraptured with the idea that what they were about to see was actual footage of three filmmakers going into the woods and trying to find the Blair Witch. And unlike this experience, which exists in several territories in Europe of the faux documentary, this is unique here in the United States, believe it or not. And I think people just simply fell in love with it. I still have phone calls from people around the country asking me whether the Blair Witch was a real film or a drama. And we'll discover that in Blair Witch 2.
I am so sorry for everything that has happened. Because in spite of what Mike says now, it is my fault. Because it was my project. And I insisted on everything. I insisted that we weren't lost. I insisted that we keep going. I insisted that we walk south. Everything had to be my way. And this is where we've ended up.
Why do you think the film is a must-see?
I think to a lot of people out there, the experience of going into a film, seeing it in a dark room with friends, not knowing whether they're seeing something that is actual footage or not, heighten the experience. And you remember Blair Witch, unlike most films in the genre mode, there is no blood in the film, there is no stabbings in the film, there are no guns in the film, but it's one of the scariest films you'll ever see. And I think that became, all in all, part of the experience of watching the Blair Witch. It was just something we tried to create.
I remember Mr. Parr was an old hermit.
Right.
And he lived up on the mountain. He had a place up there, been there for a long time.
You've heard of the Blair Witch?
Several times.
Several times. And what was the first incident?
Well, I've heard stories about her from people and neighbors and stuff like that, but also I saw a documentary on the Discovery Channel or somewhere.
Really?
Once about her, about the ghosts and legends of Maryland.
Sort of in the winter, I guess, the fall or the winter 1940, some of the young kids started to disappear, and nobody knew anything about why they were disappearing.
But the creepiest story about her that I ever heard was that two men were out hunting, and they were camped near the cabin or something that she's supposed to haunt. And they disappeared off the face of the earth.
Really?
Okay, it's all right, Ingrid. I'm just telling a scary story, but it's not true.
The Blair Witch Project was promoted that vastly through the internet. How did that come about?
Actually, the Blair Witch site existed before the making of the Blair Witch. The filmmakers had developed a little site down in Florida with the mythology of the Blair Witch. When we met with them a day after screening the film, and we had our laptop computers there, we hooked onto the site. We had seen what they'd done. And it was a very nice job, but what we did is we took their site, we enhanced it, and really, it's not the first film to be marketed over the internet. All of us have websites for our films, but it's the first one where there was a synergistic approach. The website, the trailers, the launch on the Sci-Fi Channel. We created a half-hour special here on a cable channel. Everything went along the lines of the mythology of the Blair Witch, and what we did with the website is really enhance it and updated it on a daily and weekly basis, and that's what you have to do. And so there was a great attraction to the website, and obviously the internet was one of the 4 or 5 agents of how we communicated with our audience out there on the film.
Originally the site was done by Haxon Films, who are the producers and directors of the movie. They put up a limited site when they were going to the Sundance Film Festival. What we really did with Artisan is we just took stock of everything they had done plus everything they hadn't posted and put it all up, set it up so that it would come on a weekly basis. And we did that through 4 months, starting 4 months before the release of the film, and then through the release of the film, 2 months after the release of the film. And we have stuff like Heather Donahue's journal. She's one of the actresses in the film, and this is her supposed journal. It's got pages and the transcription. We have the whole mythology of the Blair Witch dating back from 1785 through the student's disappearance in 1995. This is the legacy section where we've broken it down into discovered footage, audio, and Heather's journal. This is supposedly the footage that was found after the students disappeared. And this is their, you can hear.
I could help you, but I'd rather stand and record.
Okay. Packs are on. We're ready to go.
We gotta go up to the shack, the shanty.
Yep.
Wow.
Some of this is actually from the film, and some of it was not seen in the film.
This is very heavy.
These are all their video cassettes, high-8 videos. This is their 16mm footage. You can click on any of these and see, you know, black and white imagery.
That's the opening line of the film as well.
Right, and that was used in all of our, throughout the whole campaign, on all of our posters and all of our TV commercials. On the bottom here, we've got a scroller that goes by telling you what this week's updates are going to be on the site so that you always know what's happening.
The downside might be that people say you could take any student film and create a hype through the internet and you'll have a success.
Well, people can say that, but the results, the proof will be in the pudding. And there have been several films where they've tried to launch them on the internet. Believe me, just like any of the other companies, whether it be any of the major studios, Miramax, New Line, any of our competitors, we all try to do our best for our film. We all see the ability of what the internet can do. And as I mentioned, we all develop strategies through the internet, but just like any strategy, you have to effectuate it and it has to get a reaction from the public that's acceptable. And I think people are going to find that there's a uniqueness to what we've done and a uniqueness to the Blair Witch that I'm not sure can be emulated with a lot of other films. The revolution here is really going to be on the marketing and distribution side. I think we tend to be very reactionary in Hollywood, that if there's a success out there, we tend to emulate that success, whether it's a $100 million success, $100 million budgeted success, or a $50 million budget success, or a $1 million budgeted success. Hollywood will continue to do what it knows best, which is to make big, broad entertainment. And I don't think they're going to get into the business of trying to create a Blair Witch. If they do, I think they're going to suffer. That's the uniqueness about the Blair Witch. You really can't make it derivative in nature. But I think where you will see dramatic changes in our business is really what we do in the marketing and distribution of our films.
What kind of guys are these directors?
They're actually pretty interesting guys. They're very funny guys, and actually the next film they want to do beyond Blair Witch is a comedy. They're pretty relaxed guys, and I think these guys are very overwhelmed by the success of Blair Witch. Remember, they came out of the Blair Witch experience before it was acquired by us, basically having a hard time making their bills at the end of the month. Today, all 5 of them are multimillionaires. They'll see, collectively over $40 to $50 million based on the success of Blair Witch. So, we're very happy that they've not only succeeded artistically, they've succeeded commercially, financially as well. But they're a great group of guys.
It was in 1993, and Dan and I were in film school at the University of Central Florida, and we're talking about horror films, and started talking about the horror films that scared us when we were little kids, and we had we shared a list, kind of a favorites list. Omen, The Omen, Exorcist, Amityville Horror, and we also had these other films that were kind of weird, where we loved that show In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy, and we loved Legend of Boggy Creek and Cherry of the Gods and Search of Noah's Ark, just these pseudo-documentaries that went after, they went after the boogeyman, and they never got there, really. They never showed you the boogeyman, and we were thinking, is there any way to make a film like this, make a normal a feature film, that takes the same kind of approach of looking for the boogeyman or showing you a little bit of the boogeyman or showing you what the boogeyman does. And you know, so that was the premise, make a very realistic, at first it was going to be a documentary, a realistic documentary.
And then you decided to throw the actors into the deep end.
Yeah.
What exactly did you do to them?
Well, we
tortured them.
No, we put them in this improv environment, this real-time scenario. We created a world, a mythology. Ed and I drafted up an outline, a story outline, you know, hour by hour what the actors were going to go through for the 8 days we were shooting, and set them off day one, and allowed them to interact like a real-time play.
How much did they know?
They did. It was a need-to-know basis. You know, we directed them through directing notes. So they got to a checkpoint. They each had a little canister. They took it out and they had directing notes. So it would say, "Get to this point in the woods by 5 o'clock," and then off they would go. And then from the first-person perspective, they'd have these notes on, you know, what their mind state was, and we'd try to adjust their characterizations as we were going along. But for the most part, we allowed them to be who they are and react to the stimuli that we were giving them. But they didn't know of anything really ahead of time. You know, like when they came across the stick men in the woods, they didn't know, you know, what to expect. So, and all that was to preserve the realism that we were going after in the film.
They slept in the tent?
24/7, slept. They went to the bathroom in the woods. They ate what we gave them.
They hiked miles with the heavy backpacks every day.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like a military operation.
Pretty much,
It was. The shoot was very much like a military operation. I mean, it was, first of all, it was 24 hours a day. We have to go scare them in the middle of the night, but then we'd have to be up there at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the morning to give them the new supplies and give them the new directing notes. And then we had to meet, you know, do another checkpoint at 1 o'clock, and then another checkpoint at 4 o'clock, and then another checkpoint, you know, at night, you know, before dark. And then we had to go out there and scare them again. And, you know, and then while all this time, while we were doing things to them, we had to set the things up before,
we had to build the stick
where they were headed. So it was very much like a military operation.
How much did you feel you were working within the tradition of horror movies still? With all these innovations
in the tradition?
I mean,
we didn't really...
I don't know. We really
think about it.
Yeah, we weren't thinking about it too much. I mean, we knew we wanted to scare people. We were just trying to do or execute, you know, a film that played on the same primal fears that we had when we were watching those documentaries. So, how do we make a movie that looks and feels as real as those documentaries did to us? So we just poured our energies into making that happen. But I think it plays in the same, you know, at least intent as any horror film does, and that's to scare people. I mean, I think that's the objective of a horror film, is to try to scare people. So that's very traditional in that sense. When you think about the isolation of the kids, is no different than a lot of horror film prerequisites. You know, when you look at The Shining or The Exorcist or something like that, or Fish Out of Water, you know, people out of their element, and people being vulnerable. They're all the same, you know. But we just took a little different approach narratively, you know, and stylistically, to try to play on some of the primal fears that you know, reality TV and documentaries,
we use different tricks.
Yeah, different tricks, different bag of tricks.
Yeah. You've also been very active on the internet around this movie. Could you tell me a bit about that?
The website went up in June, and you know, we started adding like the mythology part of the film, all the backstory about the witch and about what's been happening in this area for 200 years. We put up Heather's journal, 2 pages at a time, and soon we had a really huge following. You know, we had real dedicated following to the website, and we got a mailing list, and the mailing list started at 40 people. Now it's over 3,000 people, and it's just kind of like this. You know, we kind of made the film. We shared the film, and we shared the experience of making the film, and now we share the successes of the film with our website fans, and it's been a great experience for us, because, you know, people still email us. We still have our addresses up there on the website.
We try to answer all our emails.
Yeah, as much as we can.
Yeah.
You know, it's becoming more and more impossible, but We try to answer the emails and, just try to keep in contact with the people that, that we're really doing this for.
We just wanted to make something that was scary, that scared us. I think, every film, we're not going to sit there and say what should or shouldn't be done. And, all films have their cycle, their peaks and valleys in phases. And, I think you're right. I think the screen films may be running their course. And, we were always fans of the more psychologically based horror, on The Exorcist and The Shining and films like that kind of leave a residual effect on you when you leave the theater. And so that's what we were approaching. We said, this is what scares us, so let's just make a movie about what scares us.
Yeah, our ad in Backstage that we ran for the audition said improvisational feature film, and we got an overwhelming response. I mean,
thousands.
Yeah, a lot of people, and we had to turn away a lot of people. So, it was just, I think it was an actor's dream, this film. And, Joshua...
except on maybe the 6th night or 7th night.
Yeah, then they wanted to get the hell out of there. But, like, Joshua, couldn't make it for the first batch of auditions, but he got my home number somehow. So he would call me, like, every month and a half, and just talk for, like, an hour about, who he was and how cool the idea was, and he was really into it. And he just kept calling me and calling me and calling me, and we didn't even audition him. He just came into one of the callbacks, and he did a scene with us real quick, like a 5-minute scene. And then we asked everybody to leave, and then Dan and I looked at each other and said, okay, we cast at least one guy.
That's our guy. Yeah.
And so it was kind of like that. I mean, he really wanted to to get the part, and all of them were like that. I mean, Heather's family kind of. It's like, told her, don't go. What are you gonna do? You're gonna
go in the woods with a bunch of guys.
You're going to Maryland in the middle of the woods, with a bunch of guys, and a bunch of guys that you don't know are gonna be, chasing you and doing all kinds of things. Are you crazy?
Right.
But she was, luckily she trusted us, and everything turned out pretty well. I mean, because the film was being shot 24 hours a day, so.
Someone always had to be on.
Yeah, somebody always had to be, and it was just kind of like, but it was just kind of like, a weird experience because the set was in the woods, and you couldn't just get off, there was no trailers, you couldn't get out of your car and go into a sound stage and there it is. You had to actually walk like a mile through the woods to find the tent. But it was kind of exciting sometimes, I mean, you're walking through the woods like at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you're in full we're all in full camouflage, and it's just like this guerrilla warfare, insurgency.
We've got these red lights on so that the actors can't see us, but you can kind of illuminate your way as you go into the woods, and just very zen at times.
Yeah, exactly, and it's like, we have regular flashlights until we get to a certain, a certain distance from the tent, and then we would switch over to the red flashlights, and
it's very
get close.
Military-esque.
And then it was just cool, like, it was almost like those shots of the Titanic at night. I mean, in that they've found the ship now, where you kind of approach and you just murky water, and all of a sudden you see the hull. It was kind of like that. It's like you'd be walking, and it'd be like, there it is, and you'd see the tent, and you'd barely see the tent. It's like, and there was like this human, this man-made thing in the middle of the woods. But it was just, really cool. And then you start, running around the tent, and then you stop and you hear the actors getting up and talking and turning the cameras on, and then the light comes on in the tent, and then you try to hide, and then it was just really exciting, It was,
and just realizations, like, we'd be walking in the woods, and we're doing exactly what he's describing, and we'd stop and think, what the hell are we doing?
Yeah, is this gonna work?
Is this a movie?
Go! Go! Oh, God! Hurry up!
I'm coming. My boots aren't laced. Oh my God! What is that? What the fuck is that?